This is the second of our orientation session videos, and it covers the topics of communication, financial arrangements, and also health insurance. Communication is the first topic, and this one is very important because it covers both internet access and cell phone service and how you might use that, and also some of the options you have for using your smartphone in Germany and Europe as a Wi-Fi device and making phone calls without incurring charges. So let's start with the Facebook group for this program, which is a way in which we can communicate with each other both before the program, during the program, and then again after. By making the post here, which you guys have been very active in, it allows us to communicate back and forth directly about program events. It's very useful ahead of time, and it's very useful there. But you also need to be sure that you are working with the course calendar and also your Murray State email account, because anything that comes to you through those venues are official Murray State communications that you're responsible for. So make sure that you can get to those as well. We're also going to ask you to use the Facebook group to kind of record the history of your travels and your experiences in Regensburg. We're going to share access to that group with potential student recruits next year, so they have a chance to see what you're doing and maybe ask you questions just as you followed the group this year when you were considering applying for the program. So that will always be available to us, and feel free to make use of that. That's also a good way to coordinate your efforts on travel plans if you decide that you might want to travel together either for arrival or departure in Munich or back from the Munich airport. So here's two major forms of electronic communication: internet access and email. For internet access, you'll find that internet access is available across all the campuses and in the housing facilities. You have to register if you take a laptop or a mobile phone that you're using as a Wi-Fi device for university networks. You're going to have to register that with a computer center. Now, there are more streamlined methods of doing that, and some of that you can actually do online now, but you're going to have to do that before you're able to use those devices in the university network. Now, parents and friends, that might create some gaps in communication right after our program arrives while we get that done. There will be other forms of communication available to fill that in, but it means at least on campus or on the university networks, you won't be able to start using those immediately. You'll also find that there are Wi-Fi locations around the city and around the cities that you're going to visit. Now, they might not be as plentiful or as common as you're used to them in the States, but they are there. Some of them are just internet houses, internet shops. Others of them are restaurants or cafeterias or pubs where you have access to Wi-Fi either on a fee basis or for free. In those, you have access not only with your laptops but also with your mobile phones set up as Wi-Fi devices. And as you'll see in a second, that allows you to make phone calls and do other sorts of activities as well. The two applications that are listed here, the JaiWi Fire app for Android and iPad, are services that allow you to find the location of Wi-Fi outlets in cities around the world. So you download that, and you can do it either to an Android device or an iPad or iPhone device. Download that, and then you can access it offline. So you do not have to be online to find the locations of Wi-Fi networks in the cities that you visit. So this is a very good way to use your smartphone to get to a new city, to find out where the Wi-Fi hotspots are there, and then to use those for various forms of communication, either email or phone service, if you're making calls either to the program or back home. And you probably will end up using your smartphone much more as a Wi-Fi internet device than as in cell phone applications. Email and telephone options are the next category, and the point here is to remember that you'll have access to your Murray State email system through the Google servers all the way through the program. That those are official university communications, official program communications, and you make sure you monitor those and get to those. There are all kinds of options for cellular or mobile devices. It is not possible to just take your mobile device and go overseas and use your minutes and use your data plan just as you do here. For virtually all U.S. carriers, there's additional charges for international calls and for international data, and it can be very, very high compared to what you're used to now. Now, you may well use your cell phone as on the cellular towers as a regular cellular device in emergency situations. In fact, you may well decide to leave it on during weekends when you're required to give us a cell phone number with which we can be in contact with you at all times should something come up that we need to. But it's very unlikely that you would want to use that device for your major mobile phone communication through the course of the semester. You would very likely want to use it as a Wi-Fi device, and so we have some resources here to tell you how to go about doing that, how to avoid very significant charges for phone calls and text and data when you're overseas with your smartphone, and some of the ways that you can use it as a Wi-Fi device for communication purposes. That's the topic of this article. It is possible, if you want to have a mobile phone there that you constantly use, you have a couple of options. You can buy a SIM card and also a phone if you want to from services like Wireless Traveler. This is one that is, we've linked that from the site, and you can get a card and a contract. I'm sorry, not a contract, but a device through them if you would like to do that. It is also possible, either with your phone or a phone that you buy, to buy a second cell phone for use in Germany. If you're going to buy that here, there are some things that you should look for, and they're described in the next point. You need a phone that's GSM quad band and unlocked, so that you can put a new German SIM card in it that you purchase while you're there. And then if you do that, you can have access to a variety of phone plans in the German system that are less expensive than trying to work with your phone as a smartphone that you take overseas with you. And we have provided a link there to an eBay search that shows you what the current offerings are that are quad band unlocked phones. So if you wanted to buy one to take with you to use as a cell phone while you're there and kind of maintain as a German cellular phone, called a handy in local parlance, here's a way that you can go about doing that. It could be that your current phone is unlocked. That you would have to work out with your provider and see if it's possible to swap SIM cards. Not all domestic plans use SIM cards. In any event, one of the possibilities that's available to you is to use your phone as a wireless device and gain internet access through Wi-Fi systems, and then use systems like Skype or Google Voice to establish phone connections and use it essentially as a voice over IP system to allow you to make phone calls at very, very low rates back to the United States. And we provided you a link here to the Skype system to show you how that works, and if you want to set up an account. Many of which you've already had. Now, those of you who have Skype accounts, what you'll find is that these might be a little bit more expensive, international calls than domestic, but they are very, very inexpensive compared to mobile rates or cellular rates in those local markets in Europe. It's also possible to buy direct local or multi-country phone cards that allow you to dial access points and then make calls directly back to the States. We provided a link here to one such company and some of the offers that they have. If you do that, look for ones that are inexpensive. Look for ones, if you can, that allow you to access the system through multi-countries so that you can use them in various of the places that you visit. We provided a link here as well as an example to AT&T. While just if you roam without setting up arrangements with AT&T or other providers, your costs are going to be quite high. They do provide international service at discounted from those full rates, still more expensive than local cell or data systems, but you might be able to work with your carrier to set up that kind of an arrangement for you while you're gone. Now, however you decide to do that, whichever method you want to take, it's very important that you provide us with a mobile phone number at which you can be reached when you're on the weekend travels. It could well be just your local number here that you turn on the weekends and use for nothing but emergency calls, or it could be a phone that you buy in Germany or here and put a German SIM in it. But one way or the other, you need to be able to notify us what those are. And the last thing is, if you decide to do it, and I would use this mostly as an emergency situation, it is possible to find phones that use your credit cards and charge the expenses directly to your credit card balance. These can be quite expensive, and again, but they can be very useful in emergency situations. In terms of financial arrangements, this used to be quite complicated, but it really has been sort of simplified. Our recommendation is that you rely primarily on to get cash, to rely primarily on ATM machines. Now, this is particularly helpful to you now because so many of the countries that you're in will use the euro that you may not have to hit a new city and the first thing you do go get money, because what you're spending in Germany you can spend where you are. That's not true in the UK. That's not true in some of the other countries that you might visit. And so for those, ATM is a very good option. You should have an ATM card with an all-number PIN, and it should be tied to your checking account because it's very often not possible to enter letters in the PIN in European systems or to access any other account than the primary account, usually the checking account associated with the card. And the other thing that happens is that this allows you, if someone wants to give you a gift or you need money on an emergency basis from friends or family in the States, they can simply deposit to your account in the United States, and it's readily available to you with your ATM in systems overseas. You might remember a couple of things. First, that there is a transaction cost at both ends of the transaction typically. So you might want to withdraw in larger amounts to minimize those costs. And the other thing is that you should contact your bank, make sure that they know that you're going to be overseas, and make sure that they increase your credit limit so that you're able to get a little bit more money. Sometimes the exchange rate doesn't work in your favor, although it is right now. And you need to be able to get as much money as you might need for a weekend or extended period of time. So that credit limit might need to be just a little bit higher than it is. The withdrawal limit from your ATM a little bit higher on a daily basis than it is now. We also recommend that you carry credit cards with you. Now, it is increasingly possible now to find MasterCards or Visa, and these are the most commonly accepted cards. American Express, Discover are accepted some places, but not as widely as they are in the United States. In the past, MasterCard and Visa have charged individual transaction fees for each international transaction. It's possible to get cards that do not do that, and you should check with your provider to see if that service or that feature is available on your card. This should be different from your ATM card and phone card, so that someone can't take off all your access to funds by stealing just simply one card from you. You steal or lose one card, you lose everything. That's not the case. Travel checks are mentioned in this outline. That's on the way out. We no longer recommend, nor does IIS, that you use those at all. However you make those arrangements for your ATM and credit cards, you should keep them in different places, both in your student housing and while you're traveling, to avoid losing all of those at once. And remember, you do not need to bring a large supply of euros with you when you arrive in Munich. In fact, you don't need any. If you are meeting our program faculty or our student assistants in Munich. If you're on your own, if you're traveling around Europe, that isn't quite the case. You're going to need to fund those activities. But if we're meeting you at the airport, you don't have to have any euros on you at all when you arrive. You can withdraw euros as soon as you get to the airport, or more likely when you get to Regensburg. There are all kinds of opportunities to do that. We will also provide you your first week's per diem as soon as you arrive, so you will have some meal money from us as soon as you touch the ground, that evening in Regensburg. And then finally, health insurance. Students in our program are required to have insurance in the German system. Now, it's a little bit more complicated than that, and that's part of your student ID. That's part of your student registration in Regensburg. It's a little more complicated in that we have to provide a supplemental policy early on in the semester, but one way or the other, you are covered in the German system from the time you arrive until the time you leave. We also require IIS for all study abroad students, insurance which offers an emergency assistance service and also evacuation and repatriation of remains benefits. It's very important to have anytime you travel abroad. Even though you're in the German system, you will still incur some cost These might be covered by your personal health insurance, so it's important that we have information about what your health insurance situation is here, and that we include that in your records. If those come into play, then the typical pattern is that you pay for the services as they are rendered in Germany, and you get reimbursed by your insurance company. And you should make sure you find out about all of those types of coverage and levels of coverage before you leave, so that there is less confusion should anything arise and you need to use healthcare services while you're in Germany. And that concludes the sections on communication, financial arrangements, and health insurance.